Well, Ferraro there trying to draw fouls Robinson. Here comes Rakovic, and he scores. Robinson tried to draw the foul to no avail. Nothing was called. Trojans on the other end. Rakovic.
Absolutely.
This is the Westmoreland on the Hardwood podcast on the Westmoreland Sports Network. Here are your hosts, Jack Ridenhour and Sean Maier.
We welcome you into another episode of the Westmoreland on the Hardwood podcast here on the Westmoreland Sports Network's YouTube channel. I'm Sean Maier, joined by Jack Ridenhour. And Jack, the playoffs are here. We've already got a handful of games that have been decided in Westmoreland County. Some teams moving on. Others have seen their season come to an end. We'll talk about all that. We'll also have our plays of the week, our team of the week, the Greater Latrobe boys, who notched a playoff victory last week, and a look ahead at a very busy postseason schedule for this upcoming week. But we'll begin with our starting five, our biggest takeaways, and most of these pertaining to postseason outings, as we'll begin with Derry Area, a team that had a historic regular season. The Trojans boys won their first section title in almost 70 years, but it feels like the postseason did not go the way they wanted to, Jack. They fell in the opening round, 57-46 against Deer Lake, so they are now done. A great regular season seems somewhat negated by the outcome of this one, and I know it was a tough matchup for them, a team that defeated them earlier in the season, a team that's won championships in recent years. Really tough way for Coach Espo and his crew to see their season end.
Definitely a tough way to go out, but I think if you look at it on the flip side, what a historic year it was for Derry. I mean, just being able to capture a section championship. I think what stands out to me about that celebration, the video that showed, I don't know if it was on our Twitter page or X, whatever it's called, or somebody's X page, and they mentioned, or they showed the video of the section titles on the banner and how there was just 1 year, that 57 year. And I think that right there, that says a lot, right? How big and how monumental this season was for Derry. But you're right, Sean. I think that for Derry, it ran into a team, like you mentioned, very well acquainted with championship basketball, well acquainted with playoff basketball. A Deer Lakes team that you looked at this game, a 4 versus 13, Derry being the 4, Deer Lakes being the 13. I think that's a little misleading, right? I think just because of the past and the last few years with Deer Lakes, and returned a lot of the key players from the last couple championship runs. Evan Moore has been a great player for Deer Lakes this season. I think that Derry just really, quite frankly, got a tough draw. Really just got a tough draw. A team that has been to championships, knows how to play in this type of season. And as we know, when you get to the postseason, your level of play has to go up a tick or two. It has to go up an extra notch. And I just think that Deer Lakes really pounced all over the Trojans, came out aggressively, hit them in the mouth, and ultimately Derry just could not get back to a rhythm. I give a lot of credit to Derry, fought back late in the third quarter, but I just think just ran out of steam building themselves into that hole early in the second half.
Yeah, and really it kind of started late in the first half when the Lancers got some points, maybe got a little bit of momentum heading into the locker room. They ultimately, between the end of the second and the start of the third, had an 8-0 run. And what was a pretty low-scoring game, that felt like a pretty monumental mountain to climb, if you were, for the Trojans. I know that they got a pretty good performance offensively from Stanley Rakovic, 23 points. Braden Robinson had 13. But ultimately, I think maybe years down the road, coaches and players alike from that team can look back and say we're always part of history. But for the immediacy afterwards, there's got to be disappointment, because it felt like this was maybe a team that could have matched what they did a couple years ago, which is make it to a state tournament at least.
I think you also have to look at the mental and the emotional aspect to this, how much energy that was poured into this season. I'm sure in the locker room, as wins started to rack up, we were, as we talked about it many times, Derry's on a 5-game winning streak, 6-game winning streak, and it kept snowballing. I'm sure the conversation turned into, hey guys, we can make some history here. And that takes a toll on you mentally, physically, emotionally, the focus.
I was going to ask, is it almost like a built-in letdown was inevitable after the high of winning that section title at Elizabeth Forward to wrap up the regular season?
I definitely feel like just how that game played out and the build up to it, that felt like the championship for Derry this season. That felt like the crowning jewel, if you will. And when you don't win a section crown for 50 plus years, I get it. I totally get it. Right? 10 years, okay, but 50 years, I mean, there's been a lot of things, Sean, that have happened in 50 plus years, okay? So I think that there is an aspect to it where was it inevitable? Maybe. I think that maybe if they get a different draw, they win at least one game. But I think as playoffs go on, teams start to tighten the clamps on the scout. You start to zero in on a team like Derry that, let's face it, loves to throw the fastball, and Stanley Rakovich loves to throw him as that number one option. But you have a guy like Evan Moore who really made it tough for him to get those 23 points. That can be tiring. That can be laborious for a player like that. So I think that, was it inevitable? Maybe. I think that maybe a first round win could have happened, but I think ultimately just how emotionally invested this team was in that section title, I think it just fizzled out in the end. Ultimately, ran out of steam, really.
Yeah, so that's the 4A playoffs that we were talking about with the Trojans boys, and so we'll stay in the 4A playoffs on the boys' side. And there's an interesting parallel, right? Because the two sections matched up again. Derry in Section 3 was the team that ultimately won that section. And one of the teams they finished ahead of, the defending champions, the Belle Vernon Area Leopards. But one of the teams that Deer Lakes finished behind was the Burrell Buccaneers. So what is it? Why am I saying all this? Because Burrell and Belle Vernon matched up. And so you're wondering, okay, would it kind of play out the same where one section just proved better than the other? Well, not the case. Belle Vernon with a dominant win against the Buccaneers, 60-45. And I could tell you, it wasn't even that close, Jack. It was pretty lopsided right from the get-go. So a team in Burrell that finished ahead of Deer Lakes loses to a team in Belle Vernon that finished behind Derry Area. So maybe to your point, it's more matchups than how the teams and sections really sorted out. But in this one, I also think, let's just be honest, Burrell had to play with a major distraction with their head coach not being there. Mike Fantuzzo was not in attendance. Obviously, he is facing some very serious legal issues at this point. That had to be a distraction for the Buccaneers. But I think on the other side, we saw, much like you said about Deer Lakes, the Leopards are the defending champs. And most of the guys that they have now were not key contributors, but they were still around that program. They witnessed a championship. They know championship habits. And it certainly looked like they were the team right from the get-go that was going to go establish that this was their home. And they won that one going away.
Yeah, and I think it goes to the turnover factor. I mean, you forced 29 turnovers against Burrell. That's going to give you a win 10 out of 10 times. And I think this is a Belle Vernon team that, first-year head coach Ricky Tyberski was quoted saying, we wanted to play fast, we wanted to be aggressive, and that's exactly what that's how they like to play. They like to play that up-tempo, in-your-face type of basketball. And I think for Burrell, like you said, dealing with a lot of things outside of basketball, you get hit in the face in the first or second possession, and then all of a sudden it snowballs for you, right? That's just how playoff basketball is. And like I said a few minutes ago, your scouts become a little bit tighter, your offensive sets become a little bit crisper, you're changing things in your offense as well. So I think for Belle Vernon, they found that extra gear, and that's what it is about postseason basketball. Can you find that extra level of juice? Can you get to that fifth gear and go instead of just cruising on fourth gear? And for Belle Vernon, despite graduating a lot of those key guys, having a new head coach, that's championship pedigree in those walls, not only in basketball, but football. Those two programs synonymous with winning. And when you have those guys sharing the same locker room, walking the same hallways, that's contagious. And I just think for Belle Vernon, again, if it gets the right draw, and to your point and how we're kind of bouncing back about it, it is, I think, matchups at this point. That's what it is. I think it's just who matches up well with who. And I think for Burrell, a team that likes to shoot a lot of threes, if you can take that out, it's kind of an easy win. And Belle Vernon did that, and Burrell just could not come up with any answers.
Yeah, you mentioned the turnovers, 29 of them. It felt like the majority of those came very early on because the Buccaneers just could not handle the pressure. And then also Belle Vernon was just really dominant on the glass. Cam Jenko is a demon on the offensive rebounding. And they even got contributions off the bench. A.J. Watson, not a starter, led them in scoring with 12 points. So they look like they are a team that knows what it takes to win in the postseason, and certainly a tough way for the Buccaneers season to end. Well, the season continues for the Penn-Trafford girls, although it does come at the expense of another Westmoreland County squad as they knock off Franklin Regional 47-22. Franklin Regional had to earn its way into the postseason, and they did so with their last section game, but they did seem like a team that maybe lacked some firepower, and I think that was certainly proven against a pretty aggressive Penn-Trafford team, Jack.
I love talking with Coach Fontana after the game for Penn-Trafford because he was very open and honest about how Franklin Regional took it to Penn-Trafford in the first couple minutes. And it felt that way. I mean, sitting courtside, you could tell Franklin Regional was starting to trap Penn-Trafford, starting to kind of give Penn-Trafford a taste of its own medicine. And teams that like to play that style, they like to play that style because they don't want to have to play that style or have to play against that style, right? So I think for Penn-Trafford doing a good job of getting through that really slow start in the first quarter. I mean, a team that kind of prides itself on three-point shooting, made 1 3-pointer for the game. That's something that I'm sure moving into the next round for Indiana, a lot of other teams are going to circle that and pay attention to that. But this is also a young Franklin Regional team. We've talked about it throughout the season. It's a very inexperienced group that, albeit had some players from last year's section title team, still not a ton of returners. And I just think that that is the difference in games like this. The experience started to play out, and you could tell Penn-Trafford's kind of separability or ability to just separate, pulling away, being able to just get from 0 to 60 in 3 seconds in the last, I don't know, little bit of the third quarter into the fourth quarter. You could tell Penn-Trafford is just a step ahead of Franklin Regional at this moment. Again, like we said, experienced team, lots of basketball under their belt. Franklin Regional, young team, played out in the end. And I think for Penn-Trafford, if it can get into a rhythm offensively, it can be a tough out because there's a lot of different players that can hit you, Sean. There's a ton of different offensive weapons for this team. I think the biggest question will be, does it run into a matchup where there's a lot of length, a lot of size, and does that kind of bog down a team like Penn-Trafford that's guard-oriented?
Yeah, to your point, Olivia Weissar led them with 11 points. Tori DiStefano had a double-double. But yeah, there's 5 or 6 different girls that I think could lead them in scoring in any given night. Not that they were prolific, putting up 47, but the defense certainly limited FR. Alyssa Bridges with 10 points to lead the Panthers. Well, Greater Latrobe girls, they came up shy in 5A. They had a good effort, but ultimately fell at Fox Chapel 60-58, a game that really kind of came down to the wire, and the Foxes made one more play. But it wasn't for a lack of effort by Maggie Maier. She poured in 31 points for the Wildcats in that 7-10 matchup. And I think that they have a pretty good foundation. Again, Penn-Trafford's a great team, so they're probably going to be the favorites most seasons. Indiana's right up there, but I think Greater Latrobe's a program on the rise, even though ultimately they're one and done in this postseason.
Great sign for this Greater Latrobe team. I think just a good step forward for this program. You lose by 2 in a back-and-forth game to a Fox Chapel team that I feel like every year, Sean, is secretly in the mix, always finds itself in the playoff run or even at least in maybe a championship conversation more times than not. So you tip your cap to how Greater Latrobe finished out the year. But yeah, I think Maggie Maier, she's going to be a problem moving forward when she gets to the next level as well. I think that
she's got a younger sister who's a big contributor already.
And a lot of coaches, I think, are going to start coming and finding her and looking for her because you score 31 of your team's 58 points in a playoff game. That's a big deal. That's nothing to scoff at. So for Greater Latrobe, I think all signs are pointing for continuing building and continuing momentum forward for the Wildcats.
And they've got a coach who is a go-getter, to say the least, in Mackenzie Livingston. Always enjoyed talking to her. It seems like she's either coaching or playing something every single second of her life. So I know that she is very dedicated to making sure that this program continues to take steps forward. I don't think that they're losing that many contributors in terms of graduation. So they'll return the majority of their lineup next year as well. Come up a little short. Lila Jablin had a good performance for Fox Chapel. She scored 24 points in the victory for the Foxes. Lastly, we'll finish up our starting 5, not with a playoff outcome, but a retirement, Jack. A coaching legend in Westmoreland County, Rick Klimchock. He is stepping away, not altogether stepping away from coaching, but he is stepping down as the head coach of the Greensburg Salem girls. He guided them for 9 years. Of course, he's probably most well known with the Jeanette boys, where he was there for about a decade and a half. 425 wins in his career. He's also currently helping his son Chris with the Pitt Greensburg men's team that we see. So he's going to continue to do that. I would imagine he's going to do other things related to basketball, but a head coach at the high school level no more. Congrats to him on what was a terrific career. And again, he's impacted so many people at so many different levels, boys and girls at the high school and college level.
And you mentioned the 400 plus wins, over 20 playoff appearances too. That's incredible, being able to make that many playoff appearances. I think what really stands out to me, it's funny when coaches say they retire. I don't know if they actually retire. Maybe, like you said, retiring from high school, but still helping out with his son in college. I think what also stood out to me, the article, I mean, he was coaching his high school team, helping his son out, following his other son. I mean, he was doing 3 or 4 different things. So I think a very well-deserved retirement for at least one of his jobs moving forward.
Yeah, and again, keep an eye on the Pitt Greensburg men because they are a championship contender in the AMCC, so he'll be part of that. And I always enjoy talking to him. I actually had a chance to see him the day after he announced his retirement on Wednesday, and he said it's something that he made that decision like mid-season, but he didn't want to make it about himself, Jack. He waited until the season was over because why subject your players to having to answer questions about that or have the focus taken off of them? Now, sometimes that works. We saw with Joe Salvino last year in Belle Vernon. That was the right play for them. It led to a championship. But with Klimchock, he kind of wanted to keep it under wraps, knowing that that was going to be his decision just to let the girls kind of have their moment in the spotlight to finish up the season. That will do it for our starting 5. The biggest takeaways. We will now shift to plays of the week, and we've got 3 of them to get to, beginning with the Derry Area boys. It was a tough loss at home, of course, against Deer Lakes, but the Trojans' Braden Robinson had a highlight play as his shot fake and skillful layup helped the Trojans surge in the second quarter, with John Flickinger and Mike Arone providing the commentary.
Trojans have made the playoffs 7 of their last 8 seasons, however, under head coach Tom Esposito. As Robinson strong to the hoop.
Good strong move.
And a nice little touch at the end.
Gary Tarbuck has checked into the game.
We continue plays of the week, and we'll shift to the college ranks with the Pitt Greensburg men that we just talked about. The Bobcats, they came up short in a key showdown at home against La Roche on Wednesday, but things looked promising early in the second half. Tyler Freeze had a nice cut and layup on a pinpoint pass from Trent Rosich, with myself and Mark Katarski on the call.
Mark moves it to Keffer, halfway through the shot clock.
There's a lot of action there. Oh, wonderful job.
And Freeze with the cut and finish for his first points.
Yeah, that's what they do offensively. They key it through the top of the key with Rosich, and a wonderful passer and distributor.
We conclude plays of the week with the Seton Hill women as the Griffins went off for 111 points in Wednesday's home win against Cal U. Mia Kalic was at the forefront again. She had her 3rd triple-double of the campaign, a steal and layup. Midway through the second quarter helped open up an insurmountable advantage, with Dan Flickinger detailing that sequence.
By Helene Cowan, and the rebound for Cal U's Williams. Williams lost the ball to guess who? Mia Kalic, the pick and the pair. Another steal and another deuce for Mia.
Jack, we're going to shift to our team of the week momentarily, but just to finish up, 3 triple-doubles for Mia Kalic in one season, a PSAC record. That is truly unbelievable, and I believe all 3 times it's been points, rebounds, and steals.
Miss do everything. I mean, how lucky is Seton Hill to have a player of that caliber? I would say, obviously, the most versatile player in the conference. One might say most versatile in Division II. I'm open to arguing, though. I'm open to arguing.
And then they also have twins that rank 1st and 3rd in the entire conference in scoring right now in the Cowan. So, yeah, there's a lot of good things going on the Hill, despite a loss against Gannon on Saturday. We will now focus on our team of the week. It is the Greater Latrobe boys. And rarely do we have a team that has a losing record for our team of the week, but I think it's deserved here, Jack. Overall, 10-12. They finished 7-7 in their section to get into the playoffs. But they're coming off of not only a playoff win in the preliminary round against Mars, but what they had to do late in the season just to get to this point to get in, wins against Albert Gallatin and at McKeesport. To me, they're a team that is peaking at the right time, and there's something to be said about that. It was a very impressive finish to their regular season after they had maybe some unexpected speed bumps in December and January.
You know, Sean, this is a team that when you get to the postseason and you're a team that, let's take Derry, for instance, riding high, big regular season. You run into a team like a Latrobe that's been in a corner for the last, 2 weeks. Those are the scary games. Those are what you call the trap games, right? And I think that Latrobe, again, now, albeit playing a really good Thomas Jefferson team, a very good Thomas Jefferson team, I will say the last time Thomas Jefferson lost was to Penn-Trafford. Both times Latrobe played Penn-Trafford this year, it went down to the wire. 2-point game in both meetings. So I think that for Greater Latrobe, this is a team that is scary at this point right now. Big team, long, athletic. Again, if Thomas Jefferson does not play its cards right, Latrobe could be pulling off a big upset. We could be having a very interesting conversation a week from today.
You and I have both seen the Wildcats, and of course, Brad Wetzel's been doing it for a long, long time. He's had a lot of success. I don't know that I'm not going to say that this is his most talented team, but they are physically maybe more imposing than any team that he's ever had. Ian DeServe is a plus athlete. Robert Young is a hulking 6'7" dominant force. Andy Tash is a Division I football talent. And then they've got a couple of bigs who can shoot the basketball, and Dom Scarton and Mikey Munoz that they play, in addition to some guards that are pretty sure-handed, like Sawyer Butina. Alex Ammon had a really good performance in the preliminary round victory against Mars. You can even throw in Ryan Linhart. To me, that they have a lot of pieces that you can succeed with as long as it all kind of comes together and it's the right matchup. And that matchup against Mars, Brad Wetzel even said offensively it was one of their weaker performances in recent memory, but they're still able to win by double digits because they have so many different guys that contribute in different ways, including Young with 13 points and myriad blocks and rebounds. DeServe, 15 points, 6 of 8 at the line in the fourth quarter. So they definitely have the ingredients to potentially continue to make a run, albeit against the third-seeded TJ team that's pretty darn good.
I think another thing for Greater Latrobe that can keep it in its back pocket, its ability to get to the free throw line. Attempted 24 free throws in the win against Mars. I know when I saw them earlier this season against Franklin Regional, went to the free throw line a ton. This is a team that might not be a great free throw shooting team. I mean, again, you go to the free throw line a lot. You'll make a lot of free throws more times than not. But in a high school basketball game with no shot clock, if you go 13 of 24, those 13 points can be a massive difference. I don't care if you're leaving 11 points on the board or whatever that it is. That's still a good chunk of points. You're getting off the free throw line without the clock running, and you're taking a possession away from the team. So Greater Latrobe, if it can control the pace of play, and ironically enough, Brad Wetzel likes to play fast and up tempo. This is a team that's slow, bigger, stronger, very long. Again, against Franklin Regional, Sean, I was amazed at how much court is taken up by their defense. I mean, it's truly like trying to dodge traffic on 376. It's a nightmare.
Don't do that. We don't recommend that.
No, we don't do that. No, don't do that. But I think Greater Latrobe could definitely be a handful for TJ if, again, TJ comes out to a slow start. And
another thing is you talk about the Franklin Regional victory. Well, they beat the Panthers twice. So I think it's a team that has clearly shown that they can play with just about anyone. Now, are they consistent at all times? No, because they had some bad stretches. Now they're on a good stretch. That's why they're our team of the week. But if they put it together, certainly I think they can hang with just about anyone in 5A. The Greater Latrobe Wildcats boys are team of the week. Lastly, we will take a look ahead, and so many playoff games. We don't even know what the end of next week's going to look like, but we know at least the first few nights for most of them. So we'll begin on the boys' side. We will have Norwin at Fox Chapel on WSN. That is a 6A matchup for the Knights. Greensburg Central Catholic at Sewickley Academy. Good luck to the Centurions. They are facing a dominant program, although they got a victory against Union to get into the round of 16. And then Brentwood at Jeanette. The Jayhawks actually seeded one ahead of Sewickley Academy. They are the number 1 seed in that 2A bracket. On Tuesday, Washington at Southmoreland. We will have coverage of that on WSN. We will also have Shaler Area at Franklin Regional broadcast on our airwaves. That 5A matchup. Penn-Trafford at Moon, Greater Latrobe at Thomas Jefferson that we just talked about, and Ligonier Valley at Keystone Oaks. Wednesday, Belle Vernon area against the number 1 seed Quaker Valley Quakers in 4A. On the girls' side, Monday, Mount Pleasant at Beaver, Lincoln Park at Belle Vernon area, and Burrell at Hampton. Jeanette at Burgettstown on Tuesday. Penn-Trafford at Indiana Wednesday. We will have coverage of that. Our Lady of the Sacred Heart against Greensburg Central Catholic. That could be a really good matchup in girls basketball. And then in Westmoreland County clash on Friday in 6A. Hempfield at Norwin. That will be on our airwaves as well. And then on the college side, Wednesday, Seton Hill at IUP doubleheader. St. Vincent at Franciscan men is going to be a very good matchup. Pitt Greensburg at Penn State Altoona on the men's side as well. Saturday, Pitt Bradford at Pitt Greensburg on a doubleheader that we will have on WSN. St. Vincent at Chatham in a very good women's men's doubleheader as well between the Bearcats and the Cougars. Jack, what are you looking forward to beside everything?
Well, all of it, obviously, like you said. Penn-Trafford, Indiana girls. I mean, that, I think, is the one that I'm circling. Indiana took the last one, meeting 3, rubber match, playoffs.
You had the first one at PT, right?
And they, in each of the last 2 times Indiana's played Penn-Trafford, at Penn-Trafford, we've had the call of it on WSN, and Penn-Trafford has dismantled Indiana. Indiana figured out Penn-Trafford. Now we're in the playoffs. A lot more on the line. Can Indiana do it again? Can Penn-Trafford rebound from a sluggish win against Franklin Regional? I'm really curious about that game, Sean, because for especially Penn-Trafford, if it can get into a third-round scenario in the playoffs after not getting to the third round last year, winning 22 straight games, what a year for first-year head coach Chuck Fontana.
And we saw some good teams suffer upsets. You have to wonder, will the Belle Vernon area girls be able to continue their great season hosting Lincoln Park? They won the section title for the first time since the 90s. I'm sure that they saw what happened to Derry area. So those teams that are on upset watch have to make sure that they come out and avoid being knocked out and have their season end prematurely. Well, Jack, our season's not going to end prematurely. We will be back again next week because we're going to hope and pray that we're going to have a heck of a lot of Westmoreland County teams that continue moving on to the quarterfinals or the semifinals, and then maybe eventually a couple weeks from now playing for a championship. That's going to do it for this edition. We'll catch you again next week. Each and every week, you can check it out on the Westmoreland Sports Network's YouTube channel. It's the Westmoreland on the Hardwood podcast.
This is the Westmoreland on the Hardwood podcast on the Westmoreland Sports Network.